I've sent a message to number 10 actually, just now earlier because of that debate on the 16th, Dr. Teslari's petition. I think I've only messaged number 10, Downing Street, the Prime Minister, once so far since Rishi Sunak's been Prime Minister, and I can remember maybe around 2015 or after, I was actually contacting him quite a lot. Obviously, before the 2013, I didn't really contact the government at all because I had my own life and my own interest, my own pursuit. But obviously, since I started my campaign in 2013, then obviously it's all about politics. Now, the thing about this form, this is kind of like this page here, believe it or not, is sort of like the equivalent of what they've got in America when you contact the president. Although I kind of think it's pretty much joke now. It's quite clear that the government doesn't really pay much attention to people, particularly people who oppose the main political parties' agendas. I mean, is there any point contacting the government? Sometimes I think there is. I mean, I must say that many times the government you seem to get we'll call it a reaction, not necessarily an action. They very, very rarely do anything that you ask them to do. But if you make a bit of a fuss about something, make a big enough fuss, you could say that, you could probably, quite a few people could make a bold claim and say, well, we got a reaction from the government or an action. And a reaction is different to a response, because a response, they might just, give some excuse or whatever. But I would like to say that I've got a lot of reactions from the government, not the action you want, but nonetheless, you cause them to act or do something, like David Cameron being, mysteriously put into the foreign secretary position and Suella Braverman resigning, things like that. I guess I'd like to claim contribution towards David Cameron going really from Prime Minister and Theresa May, and possibly even Boris Johnson. Although there's a lot of people also throwing incendiaries into the equation. I don't know about Liz Truss. There was a hell of a lot of people throwing political things at Liz Truss. There's an entire nation, obviously, but I'd like to think that I got some interesting or strong legal points in there when it comes to like things that quite serious and important when they can't not do nothing, even though if you don't get them to do the thing you want to do, they do something. It's almost like no matter whatever we do, we've always got these characters pop. Like it's almost like they just get another. It's like you're playing a chess player and you get you take the pieces, but the player's still there. They're entity, their side, their team just carries on, even though they've got a different piece. Or after, it's like sacrificing pawns in a way. Although Cameron's back now. he's got to the other side of the board somehow, even though he's removed. Now he appears back in the House of Lords. But what I want to point out about this form, it's very, very different to the Americans contact the White House form in kind of quality. And I'm pretty sure that you can type what you want into the contact White House form. You can definitely type the symbol "and" for sure instead of writing "and." What is really joke about this form is this government is supposedly supposed to be, one of the most advanced civilizations, one of the most advanced countries, even though, China owns the social point system and surveillance, and they've got micro cameras in every single apartment room and whatever. Well, I've got one in my hand now, I suppose, on my phone. But, this form, right, it's restricted to how many words you can write, how many letters you can write. So you would think that to save letters and cut down on letters, you would not write the word "and," you would put the symbol "and" instead, because it just saves letters. You're saving every time you write the symbol and instead of the word and, you're saving 2 letters. Maybe the word and is not academic. Maybe it's a lazy word. Maybe it's a common word. You're not even supposed to use the word and. But so they've effectively saying they don't want the use of any symbols at all. But in a country that subscribes to have a high academic standard in English and punctuation and literature and intelligence, this is serious. This form will not even take full stops, because I've edited my message, removed all dashes, commas, brackets, / at symbols, all those. It won't allow you to use the symbol and, shorthand for the word and, even though that would heavily reduce the amount of letters you write. It could probably reduce it by possibly 10 characters or 20 per message. And I can understand why they don't want you to use web URLs or web addresses because of hacking. But seriously, Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister of England, turned down an MI5 phone, a MI5 adapted hack-proof phone. Boris Johnson turned it down. Yet, when you contact the Prime Minister form, you can't, even show them any links or references or examples, not even to their own legislation website. What really gets me is the and symbol, though. I can't believe you're not even allowed to use the and symbol. But it's. I don't think it's acceptable for punctuation. You can't write. You can't. You're not allowed to put full stops or commas. Are they actually helping? Are they aiding to remove and lower intelligence? There's just been a video on the Reclaim Party website. Lawrence Fox has just interviewed a school teacher, a head school teacher, and he is giving some statements and evidence to be suggestive that, from his own observations, he believes that the standard of school teachers has dramatically been lowered. The intellectual standard, capacity expected of teachers, school teachers, has been dramatically lowered. And he's got this evidence, from staff rooms and just interacting with other teachers, that the standard required to get the job, to get the position, is not as meticulous. And he just says that they don't appear to be intellectual people anymore, deep thinkers, reflective, like Professor Tim Wilson would kind of advocate, for example. And he suggests that this is for a number of reasons, some of which is social media, television, shopping channels that teachers, particularly women teachers, the type of programs they might watch nowadays, not the Open University, and just culture, shopping channels, Amazon, the television celebrity shows that are on TV, and that they're usually in the talking about television or X Factor or things like that, TV soaps, not subjects, debating the sciences, debating, the subjects, maths, and even philosophy and how people should behave and act. After all, philosophy or sociology is a subject that clearly should be taught in schools. I remember Boris Johnson saying that he wishes the world would be like a Peppa Pig world, like some sort of cartoon, and he says that part of it is this kind of TikTok orientated social model, which is also pushed by the Chinese, by China, and their regime, which is all under social point system, as we know. And he says that does play a role in it, play a part in it. And he says that, if you challenge people and if you want to discuss complicated or controversial matters, now many of the school teachers just don't want to enter a discussion and don't want to talk about it, or just if you've got an opposition or a strong point. Now I'm finding now that this is I've got the same view and opinion as this school teacher when it comes to contacting businesses and companies, like, when I'm contacting even the newspaper to place an advert, or ordering, some campaign material, flyers, stickers, logos. And if I want to enter a discussion about the legal side of it, the law, or doing the VAT, the VAT, or if it's to do with law, like publishing rights, anything like that, when I know that I'm right about it. Also, TuneCore and Distro, I beg your pardon, TuneCore and DistroKid. I kind of like talking too much in a long stream then without wetting my mouth, without swallowing it, just got dry. So, and Apple, iTunes, and Amazon. Now, DistroKid and TuneCore, who are the middlemen, for example, when I'm publishing music, political music, they are negotiable. They have got kind of a certain amount of negotiation, but they're saying that it's iTunes and Amazon that are calling the shots. Now, when it comes to Amazon and iTunes and YouTube, these companies are even worse, because the staff, if you could actually get into a debate or dispute over the law and start scrutinizing it and discussing it, well, clause 3 says this and clause 4 says that, and I interpret this meaning as this or that, but they've been trained to avoid and evade entering dialogue, usually because if they admit that you're right or say something on something, then they are liable for saying it. So they're actually following kind of like orders to just give these already pre-written responses, or only stay within a certain type of dialogue. Now, this is what I call the Starship Enterprise, the Jean-Luc Picard, the Patrick Stewart, the Number One, the, Impulse Speed, Mr. Sulu model. Unfortunately, that Bill Shatner started off with his caricature, although he's meant to be the saviour of mankind. Now it seems to be that we're being taken over by the corporate enterprises, and all their staff are under direct Starfleet command, even when they're wrong, but they're enforcing themselves, either evading, admitting that they're wrong, even when they are. Because basically they've got, the Starship Enterprise, and they've got shields up, and they've got phasers, and you've got nothing. You can't actually do anything. All they have to do is, they're just basically giving orders. In fact, their boss, or they're under command of their boss, and then you are under their command. You're just like a Klingon on a screen to them. Less than a messenger popping up with those little chat heads, and you're just flicking your thumb to get rid of them or whatever. That's symbolic. This is what these people do to us. And this is, I think, what this government does to us. We're just like flickable chat heads that pop up, get out of the way, like, flicker out of the way. I don't even like the idea and model of that whole procedure. It's not right how you treat a person. And I know that, you can't have the attention of everyone, but then we'll get into discussions about, when the TV was broadcasting to everyone and we were just the viewers, the listener, and, you've got these selected celebrities on TV, and Deck or whoever it is, even Russell Brand or whatever at the time, there is no interaction really unless you write into the programme for a complaint usually, or, want to be on the show or turn up in the studios. But the majority of the population just, they either watch or you don't. But now we've got this kind of like next phase, which is that you've got these like trickle down, water down, this kind of YouTube kind of like the YouTube invention, the YouTube effigy is you have got some kind of audience participation when even they can talk to each other. And and you can sort of speak and give feedback directly to these programs. Now, some of these programs, are very small channels and or negligible, and some are getting up quite big audiences now. Obviously, Russell Brand, Jimmy Dore, George Galloway, that Redacted channel, channels like that. All different channels have different numbers of people, but still, I mean, in a way, there is some. In a way, that there is a more deeper connection, because everyone that it does break the whole major mainstream TV culture up into pieces somewhat, although there is big chunks of it left, ITV and the BBC, and the rest of it is kind of broken up into these bits. But these channels now, we're in a phase where we're not watching them for entertainment, really. We're not really watching a lot of these channels or groups just for entertainment. There's kind of serious things happening, and a lot of these channels are engaged in political engagement, actions, and a lot of them, the addresses to people are about concerning that. So it's really, really important to discuss things and to actually interact. And what I find is that, yes, it is better than having main TV channels, but still, on some of the channels, for example, Dr. John Campbell is a good example. I mean, he's got so many million viewers, and you can get a response, and he does speak to you sometimes on his videos, although there are thousands and thousands and thousands and thousands of comments, sometimes hundreds of thousands. But I really can't see how, unless these people are meticulous going through it all, it's too many. But it's too many people to respond to individually when it's important, but people kind of are needing to, if they've got certain important matters or points to discuss. Although I guess you can tag people in things, but you never know whether they see it or not, or whatever. But what I've found out and discovered now, I'm kind of going away from this whole form and Rishi Sunak now. I wanted to talk about one paragraph in this form, and I've gone on to a massive thing, but I might as well. I'll get back to that in a minute. So what I've found is this, right? When you, before all this, what we call it, episode started, with the whole, lockdown and everything, for that, I guess that was for everyone, the lockdown, not just for some of us. Most people have a life. To be honest, I didn't watch TV that often. I watched it as a kid, cartoons and so forth. But when you're a kid, you're in your own little play world, in your own little mind, and then you go out and play with your mates and your friends, and you might not have an expanded awareness and knowledge of all of the world around you in a great detail, because you're learning more and more about the world around you. But the TV is just, it's a thing that's there as much as the toys that the TV is selling, but also as much as your parents or your friends, or going up to the park or wherever, right? Or going into town, or whatever you're doing, going to the seaside. It's just a thing that's equal, right? But what I've found is, when people grow up and get older, everyone just ends up watching the television. You either spend your time under the employment to earn money, which usually isn't very much money, right? And then you come home and then you're just watching other people speak and so forth. Now, what I found as a teenager and through all my 20s is that I actually had a life. I might not have been the most socially active person, I might not have been the most socially adept person. Some people, they go into television, or they go into, theatre or acting or whatever it is, or sports or whatever, if they're successful. Everyone has got their own comfort zone when it comes to socialising. Some people, like even professors, though, they like teaching classes and they're happy in front of, 20, 30 odd pupils, and they go to presentations and they might even engage in a bit of theatre and television like Tim Wilson. Those academics also appreciate quite a lot of time by themselves studying and reading. Now, what I found is that, if you've got a life, even if it's by yourself, even if it's going out walking or hiking alone, or, going to, heritage sites alone, whatever, or even if it's going playing sports with a couple of friends or whatever, if you've actually got a life and you're doing things that you want to do, regardless of whether that is, engaging with, multiple people like a socialite, or whether you choose to prefer to spend time alone. I mean, I know some people just like programming computer games and just sit by themselves doing that. But, most people, are happy if they, if you can say you've got a life. Now, what I found is when I had my life taken off me, so, I couldn't go anywhere anymore, and not even on the bus. At one point I was even, if I couldn't even go somewhere I wanted to myself driving, then at least you can get out on the bus and so forth. I'm going to take that off you, and then not even go to the places I like to go, because then, people started spoiling them and ruining them. What else have you got left to do? And then this whole television thing, it's kind of like, then I realised, well, a lot of people just do that anyway. A lot of people didn't go out, but a lot of people didn't even, people just watch the TV and then just, broadcast this option of, what other people are saying and doing, and everyone's just giving attention to it. Now, it was all right. I mean, you've got these channels, and in England, we didn't have Sky and we didn't have cable for a long time. In America, they had this cable TV where there was a lot more diverse channels. In England, we mainly had, like a few, like 3 or 4 main channels. And then those channels, they had certain slots, like, Friday at 8 o'clock or whatever. Now, the thing with TV is that most people who weren't complete and total utter telly addicts, and that's all they did was watch TV, when they did watch TV, they actually only had certain programs that they liked. Like, for example, they might have liked, Kimmy, like Why Don't You program, or some, where you actually make things and do stuff, or whether they like Doctor Who, or whether they like something like, a specific program like Lovejoy or something like that, or I don't know, the majority of people watch these programs that are on every single day, like Coronation Street, EastEnders. So, like, you pledge in like every single day of the week to it, whether it's like, EastEnders, or they used to have, the Australian soaps, and Coronation Street, Emmerdale Farm, all these, they're like, all through the week. But people who weren't actually, addicted to the TV and actually wanted to go out and do things, most of those people only had like a small number of programs which had only put, an hour or 2 hours into a week. What I'm finding now is that when we actually are in a situation where, we know that, we're trying to keep up and follow what's going on, you're watching all these channels, and then there's so many of them that there's just not even enough. There's so many of these channels that you can't possibly watch all of them. I mean, this is the thing. There were so many TV channels and so many programs, and you actually, if you wanted a life, and then you say, okay, I mean, 2 or 3 days a week, or one or two programs a week, and then, that's it. Now, if you are, even if you're watching them all the time, I mean, the thing is, Russell Brand's putting a program every day. Jimmy Dawes putting 2 or 3 programs every day. John Campbell's putting programs every day. Some of them are half an hour long. There is not the time to watch them all. It actually isn't possible. And it's like you can't watch the Jimmy Dore and the Russell Brand and the Dr. Campbell and you can't have 10 channels that you are really, really important and make sure you watch every program from all of those channels every day, because it's not possible. Now, likewise, those people doing those channels aren't a TV station, and they don't have staff, and they don't have people to read messages employed solely for reading messages and responding. So, I mean, Campbell's got a life, Neil Oliver's got a life, Jimmy Dore's got a life, George Galloway's got a life. So they just can't read all of the messages of all of the people, right? But in certain times, it might be important, or people might have important things to discuss, not just listening, speaking. So it's not possible, and I actually think that the powers that be kind of know that, and you just end up like you have to kind of bounce around between them and only watch what seems in the title of it, or very, very, very like the most important. So you only end up watching what has the most importance to it. But even then, I mean, if you actually want to have a life going out with real people and doing things with people, it's just not possible. And what I've been thinking also is this: if you do have a life, and if you do meet people, even if you want to meet new people all the time, I mean, even if these people you're only going to see, you might not even see them that often, like even your own relatives, you might see once or twice a year or less if they're in Australia, all these people. What actually are healthy human relationships, and how many of them can you even have? What is the maximum number of healthy relationships you can even have in life when you actually really, and then time's passing and going away? What you actually end up with is relationships with programs that you haven't even really got that much time for even all of the programs, and the program's not a relationship. These presenters, these people in these programs, I mean, they care about the subjects we care about, because we're all kind of like working together or acting together to try and do something about issues that are important for everyone. But those specific people themselves, they aren't really your friends, even though they're your allies, and they probably aren't going to be. And even though it's like the television, no one is friends with the telly, and this is why I don't like Ant and Dec. This is why I don't really like them, because they say that we've got all the audience in the studio, they're here, they're cheering, and we've never heard us cheers as much. No one in their lives had as many cheers as this. Well, no one needs 100 people cheering for them in person ever. And that is, I think, what this whole thing's about. It almost, these people are even fighting for it. I mean, Ant and Dec are fighting for viewing figures. They're battling for it. I think they kill for it. I actually think Ant and Dec, never mind going into the jungle and getting people to sniff, crocodile droppings. Would they kill for it? Would they kill people for the viewers? Would Ant and Dec eat a live man's leg for more viewers? I mean, let's get Ant and Dec in the jungle and let's say, right, all your viewers are going to go. You're not going to have any audience now. You're going to be broadcasting the program to no one unless you eat a live person. Take them to a country where they can do it. In some sort of Indonesian jungle. Would they do it for the audience? What are they prepared to do to have these worshippers? What are they prepared to do to have these viewers, to have this social audience and power? Because that's what it's getting to. But who are the audience? I mean, this is it. I mean, and this goes back to what this school teacher was saying with Lawrence Fox. The intelligence, people aren't criticizing things and reflecting on things, and the thing they're really not criticizing and reflecting on is actually the TV itself and the content, the shopping channels. the process of shopping channels, which is affecting all of us, and so forth. I mean, look at Extinction Rebellion. I mean, they get out, they meet people, they travel, they go to events within themselves. They're creating friends and relationships and so forth in doing the campaign, although it's not, apparently if they could save the earth, they wouldn't need to do the campaign, but then they wouldn't be, doing... I don't have that much sympathy for Extinction Rebellion, mainly because of their success, because, it's like, we're doing it. They like making things, they like painting. Even if they weren't doing Extinction Rebellion, they would be painting some sort of, signs or painting something or doing some sort of events that involves, making things and hanging them up, So, they seem quite, capable and adept people, even if it wasn't Extinction Rebellion, even if it was the Village Feet, they would be doing it. They're just not doing the Village Feet with the mayor or the councillors because they're opposed to them. It would be all right if they were, aligned, if they wanted to, do that rather than, just plough railway lines through the place, So I don't even know whether YouTube is a good thing or not. Because at the end of the day, it's just absorbing. It's almost like, it is like through the looking glass, isn't it? It's like, I do like Russell Brand and his channel. I don't watch every video now because, not every video that he does is important. And a lot of the time he's going on about the same things. But occasionally now he'll make a bit of progress. But still, it's almost like, through the looking glass relationships, isn't it? I know some people go to see Russell Brand live when he turns up, but, what, at the end of the day, who wants a through the looking glass, relationship with these channels and people? It's not real. I don't think it's real. And even if it was, I mean, it gets to a point where, fair enough, some people can have an entire existence by themselves if they live out in the wilderness or in the woods or something. But there's something really... I think that, in the 60s and 70s, when people actually engage with people, with all the technology and advancement and progress we've got now, you'd think that, we'd have made some advancements in getting on together, but the only answer they seem to have is this wokeness. I don't think we've made a progress in understanding each other. I think some people used to understand people anyway, but instead of everyone making this leap forward in understanding to catch up with each other, it's almost like there's been a big retardation and step backwards, and the technology's popped up, and instead of making a leap in people understanding each other, we haven't. It's kind of like, and that's what that school teacher was saying, was Lawrence Fox. The teachers now seem to be getting more stupid and more. And I think the word woke, they use the word woke, but it's the opposite of enlightened. It's not enlightened. Enlightenment is, if there's another person suddenly understanding everything about that person, even, the bad points, and understanding why they've got bad points, and then being liberal about it, and then kind of like, all your questions are answered, and then maybe the answer is, then it comes down to, should I be making someone do things they don't want to do? Or whatever. But then, there's the option of discussing it and talking about it, and I think that's what the school teacher was getting into. The fact that people used to debate things or discuss things, and now it's kind of like off the menu. It's kind of like, what he's basically saying is like the new woke school teachers, the new woke mums, they're kind of like, they don't want to discuss or debate it. And I think a lot of that comes down to what I was saying about these companies and businesses. When you're in emails trying to debate or discuss policy or something, or the law or rights, they don't want to enter discussion or debate it. It's like, and the thing is, you can't push it because a lot of these publishing places like, DistroKid and, TuneCore, if you push it too much, then they start threatening, to end your subscription or take your music down if you push it too much. And then they actually are threatening you with just pulling the services when you might be right. And they don't want to actually really properly discuss it. So what they're doing is they're refusing to say anything or agree with you, anything legal that could, admit them wrong, because you could use it against them in court legally. But they're saying if you do pursue, the argument, even if you might be right, they're just going to pull your services. So it's like saying, we're not going to discuss it, and if you don't shut up, then we're going to pull your services. So they've got all the strings, they've got all the buttons, they've got all the power and all the control, even if they're wrong. And, there are some options for going to court with it, like in small claims. I think that most arguments can be sorted out through online court. I know that it's not over money, but, you can say that, it's putting you out for money, or it's costing you money, or whatever. And I'm starting to think that I might go to court now, But even if you get a court order, you're not guaranteed that if this is the thing, how they've got us by the balls, because this is the thing. Rollo Morgfling and the whole Stonehenge Alliance, so forth, went to court and got an order, and then the Department of Transport just kind of like, out of the way, peck, just weren't bothered. They don't have to comply with court orders. The problem with YouTube and Apple and Amazon and these big companies is that if you get a court order, who's going to enforce it? I mean, you don't have bailiffs, unless it's collecting the money. And you might not want the money. It might be over money, but the legal argument, whether they owe you all the money or not, is because of whether they've broken the law or whether they didn't comply with something. You just basically want your channel back up, or you want your videos back, or you want your music published, or you want your things printed, and they don't want to do it, right? Even though, there's a legal requirement or whatever, so forth. And, even the thing is, if they're in America or Australia or Europe, how are you going to enforce that? Because if I got a court order against YouTube, for example, to put my videos back or give me access to my videos, for legal purposes, because they're evidence, and I need them. They're in America, so how can I get them to do it? What am I going to do? Send Trump the court order, or send it to Biden or whatever. Sorry, and this is it. So by being physically located overseas, even I think YouTube have got an office in London, so I'm thinking of taking them to court. Because a lot of these big companies don't send people to represent them in small cases because, they're too busy, and, if it's not over a lot of money, they might just send a representation in, So I'm finding that I think that it's this whole Tony Blair model, when he's going around to governments and trying to get them to change the way they do things around the world, whether it's India or, Africa or the Middle East or wherever, these different governments that Tony Blair's having these meetings and trying to change their views and the way they do things. Tell governments how to, it's kind of like a package. And it's a Starship Enterprise package. And it is this is how you've got to do things around the world, the standard. But the standard is, we say, you follow orders, commands, and, this is it. And the public, the subjects, the customers, they comply or tough, as Tony Blair would say, it's someone else's problem, that's what's happening, really. And what's happening, like what the school teacher says, like in the staff room, try to discuss intellectual subjects. They don't want to, they don't want to discuss intellectual subjects. And a lot of it is because they don't want to be proved wrong. And a lot of it's also to do with narrow-mindedness, I think it's very easy. I think it's got something to do with likes and dislikes, and the fact they've been given these buttons where, all this woke mum culture and woke school kid culture, they can just like easily, if they don't like something, it can go away, make it go away. I don't want to be, these people can't be wrong in an argument. I mean, these people, if they don't like what you say in a group or they don't agree, they push a button and you're gone. That's it. And I think it's power. You don't argue with me, and we don't even debate it because, I don't want to see your point of view. And I don't need these. The thing with these woke school teachers and mums is that they don't need to see your point of view now. They don't need to see your side of the argument, and they don't need they don't need to be right because they don't need to prove they're right, because if they don't agree with you, they just push a button and that's really like the Graham Norton culture. That's like Graham Norton has promoted and encouraged that through his psychological reinforcement of his TV program, and he just pulls a lever and they're gone. Like sit in the chair, pull the lever and they're gone, and everyone laughs and thinks it's funny. And that's kind of like reinforcing, encouraging people to push the button on these groups, and they kind of think that it's funny in a way. And that's an example of the power of the television production companies and producers and people like that. I mean, Tucker Carlson has been championing all of this counterculture against, the establishment, and now he's launching his own platform, but you've got to pay to join it. It would be all right if you could transfer all your videos over from YouTube. Wouldn't it be good if Tucker Carlson, kind of like did a deal with YouTube saying, right, all these people, who you don't want on YouTube and you've banned, I'll tell you what, if they pay $77 with me, we'll transfer all their video files over from YouTube and all their comments and all their likes and subscribers, over to my channel, so they haven't lost all the work they've done or all the hours they've put into investigation, all the evidence which is legally protected in law that YouTube have got possession of, and not letting people sign in and log in to access it when you need it for evaluation purposes for illegal proceedings. What is Paul Groves doing about that? This is the thing. It would be all right. Well, where are my videos? We don't want you on his channel. Well, give me my videos back. It's almost like, if you split up with a partner, I can remember once having a friend, and his girlfriend, they split up and she threw all his things out of the house, a lot of them out of the top window, and then there's all his things that there, I mean, I won't mind, but, Paul Groves and Neil Mohan, that aren't even giving you your things back, and I think that's the worst part of it. You've got all this channel and all these things, and but it's not the fact that they don't want you on the platform anymore. I think it's the fact that before all the COVID restrictions and regulations, my channel was there 10 years. I had it since 2013ish until only February of this year. And that's a long time. I mean, if there was anything wrong with what you were doing, what could I be doing wrong? I've been on there for 10 years. I haven't hardly had any strikes. What could I possibly be doing wrong? I'm knocking the same types of videos out all the time. There can't be anything wrong with this channel at this stage. It's 10 years, right? So why would you presume that, your videos weren't safe on there, that your content wasn't safe? Why would you need to make backup copies of it? I've been on there 10 years. Why would you think there was an immediate and urgent threat to your content? And this is what I don't like about YouTube since Neil Mohan's taken over. Where are all my stuff? Where are my things? They're not even giving you your things back. They're not even saying, right, at least on Facebook, this is the thing with Facebook, right? At least on Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg gives you the option, and I know that Jimmy Dore the other day was saying that Mark Zuckerberg is like, the White House's little bitch boy or something like that. Whatever Jimmy Dore said was kind of funny, a bit of a joke. He was it was sort of like saying at least Elon Musk is like standing up to them or something, but or making out that he is, whether he is or not. at least kind of Mark Zuckerberg, he's got this thing where you can like download all your Facebook information. You like press a button and you kind of like you download all the data and information, everything you've looked at, all the videos you've saved, all your favorite things, all the pages you've viewed, or something like that. I have done it once, I think. You see, what Neil Mohan and YouTube aren't doing is saying, right, you have to get off our platform. We don't want to promote you anymore. We don't want you on here. We'll say, right, we'll give me all my stuff back, And this is the thing. And then if they say, right, well, it's like, it might be like, 10 gigabytes. It could be 10 TB, 10 gigabytes. It could be more, if you've been on there 10 years, and you've got 3,000 or 4,000 videos, it could be like 10 gigabytes. I mean, that means you've got to go buy 10 gigabyte hard drives, that's going to cost you a lot of money to buy, right? But at least, if he said it, then at least you download all your videos with the titles and the descriptions and all the comments that you had from people, and all your lists and all your other favorite channels, so you can't forget to find them. The thing with YouTube at the moment is, even when someone sets a video to private, you don't even know what that channel is anymore. If you liked a video and it was quite important, right, and then the person sets the video to private, you can't even remember what channel it is, and you forget, and then you put the video in, and it won't even tell you what channel it is or anything. So you can't even find that person's channel. That is ridiculous. And I think that it's a strategy there to try and disconnect people and prevent connections. It's not helpful. I don't know what YouTube are doing on linking videos off site at the moment. None seem to play, no matter what channel they're on. They've just got it so it doesn't work at the moment. I've gone into a massive discussion pretty much about everything, but what I actually wanted to make this video about, funnily enough, is this points of light. This points of light. Rather than just, if I'd have shot an infrared light straight at this points of light, it would have hit the target, and I would have talked about points of light. But what I actually ended up is doing it was almost like an ultraviolet beam of light, which was fully circular, like a globe of light into every subject. And now I've just gone away from the point. I only wanted to say that in regards to the speed cameras and illegal prosecutions and road safety, what's interesting about this number 10, I could edit this bit off and make a separate video. This is the number 10 Contact the Prime Minister page, right? And why has on this Prime Minister number 10 page, they've got this special part about this here, right? If you would like to nominate an outstanding individual volunteer for a Points of Light award, please use the Contact Prime Minister Office email form. For further information on Points of Light, please visit here, Points of Light. Now, out of any subject under the sun that you could possibly raise, of any subject on this planet or in this country, even particularly to do with government that you could think of, right? Can you believe that on the Prime Minister's number 10 Downing Street contact page of anything to do with government there can be, he's got something that is called Points of Light. And it happens to be to do with an award, suggesting people for awards for individuals. But they've named these awards for individuals Point of Light. A point of light is very prominent when we're talking about these police lasers, because they fire a light beam, an infrared light beam, a precise aimed point of light onto a vehicle, right? Now, how can it be a complete coincidence that they've even got this award and that even features on number 10? And also, what I find is, in your life, there are many, many, many people who are good people, altruistic people, kind people, honest people. And a lot of those people have actually been, getting these points of light shone at them when they're out driving, and they get branded criminals, and they have to go to these speed awareness courses and get told they're bad and naughty. Now, I think that the entire subject and the entire matter of concern when it comes to these people with laser beams and guns shooting at drivers when they simply are going to work most of the time, the government like to make out that is kind of insignificant or not particularly important matter, but I think it is, because it's on the website here. And another thing is that I think that the money from speeding fines, particularly with laser guns from police, when I've been getting freedom of information requests and they've been telling us how many people got prosecuted here or there, I think that they've been lying about the figures. I think that, and they also can erase a lot of the evidence after 5 years or so forth. I think they've been doing a hell of a lot more than they claim when you do freedom of information. And I think that these points of light heroes, these cop shooters, and the fixed speed cameras, the police, I think they've been raising probably 10 times more money for the government than they claim. More. And I think that they are, the government's heroes. And I think the government considers them heroes. And I think anyone who thinks that they've been done for speeding or driving or whatever by these lasers and otherwise would be a honourable, commendable citizen merely out of, honesty and kindness and goodwill, without having to be some sort of charity hero, just be good, I think it is a big deal. And then I think it's making actual normal people bad. Or not as good if they've been shot down. And, if this wasn't such a big deal as they claim, then why is there just something? Why is there something, anything? It could have been anything under the sun on the Contact the Prime Minister's page, but it's point of light. That point of light that shines from the gun on the bonnet. And I know it's not American, we don't have bullets, but it's just too obvious. And for that reason, I think it is a hell of a lot of a big deal than they make out it is, and I don't like it. I don't like it because, firstly, all the road signs were set up illegally. Secondly, they've been lying about a lot of other things. Thirdly, I think that it breaks the Petition of Right and Magna Carta by actually getting people to confess when they might not be guilty and even accept fines without being put through proper legal procedure in court, without being properly judged. It breaks many, 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 many laws. I think the whole thing's corrupt and criminal. And they've still got it on there now under Sunak. I mean, we've had David Cameron, we've had Theresa May, we've had Boris Johnson, Liz Truss, and now Sunak. And still, even though now you can't even, use, you used to be able to put web addresses, URLs, even use the and symbol. You can't even put full stops. And this is what annoys me now. They've still got this points of light thing on the Prime Minister's contact page, yet you can't even put you can't, as a academic Englishman, intellectual, you can't even use full stops when you're writing to the Prime Minister. What has the world come to? Points of light. You can't even write a letter to the Prime Minister on one of the most advanced countries in the world's own Prime Minister's government website, when Boris Johnson even refused to have an MI5 mobile phone. You can't write to your own Prime Minister in England without putting full stops. I mean, you can't write to him if you use full stops. Can you believe that? I mean, I'm on Facebook and there are some very, very intelligent people on there. I mean, I'm friends with some poets and they're knocking poetry out every day. I mean, they know their prose, they know their consonants, their vowels, they know every term for every style of writing or any intricate, verse or rhyme or meter. They know what everything's called under literature, every type of haiku or, pun or whatever, they've got this immense reservoir of, vocabulary, not just like Russell Brand. Russell Brand is a person who I, consider quite rich in dictionary. He knows a hell of a lot of words, terms and meanings, and still, even those people, even we got Tess Lowry, who's petitioning over the World Health Organization taking our rights away. Dr. John Campbell. What must these academics think when they're writing to their Prime Minister, but even they aren't allowed to use full stops? And then the full stop is a little dot on a page, a little point, right? Like a point, but not of light, but of darkness. And they have this Points of Light Awards. Now, some of these people, some of these academics might be seeking awards themselves for charity work or services to the public, And that, don't you think it makes them not want to support anything that might be calling out illegal road signage or illegal enforcement or anything illegal from the police heroes? They might not get nominated for a Point of Light Award if they side with the team that are going against their champion police camera officers who are doing it all illegally because, by the way, you're not allowed to force confessions out of people through discount offers and favour. It's all wrong. It's just despicable. I don't know who's behind these Points of Light Awards. I think it must be some sort of police chief or House of Lords. But Cameron, I don't think it was there before Cameron's era. But it's certainly still there now, and Cameron's been resurrected back to the House of Lords now from Prime Minister's position. People who come up with things like this Point of Lights Award, they've got something seriously wrong with them. And what they'll do is they'll even sacrifice the standard of punctuation and literature of the entire country to make a point. Maybe not of light, but of darkness, or a full stop on a page is a point of darkness. It's stupid. How can we have a Prime Minister, Boris Johnson, who refuses to even have an MI5 mobile phone, when the government won't even allow you to even attempt the proper punctuation to even write to the Prime Minister, because apparently our country's not advanced enough. It's not secure enough to use full stops. The whole thing. And the whole culture they've got of the television, it can't be the future. I don't want, through the looking glass relationships with people who, they haven't got the capacity for relationships with, 5,000 people or 10,000 or 20. It's not possible. And worse than that, by the time the government have finished with us, by the time we are allowed to drive or allowed to catch the bus or allowed to actually go somewhere, or his local park hasn't been ruined or Ponyfield being built on, they're actually stealing our life. 2013, I started my campaign. I don't have a life now. I am not permitted to have a life because this government want to assimilate us all, and they want us all to have through the looking glass pretend lives with people who really can't give us actual real connection or relationships or friendships, because they want us all to be mini Ant and Dex. They want us all to be some sort of worship minions, and if you don't qualify to be an advocate preacher, then you get pulled from the channel, you get pulled from YouTube or whatever. If you're not one of their points of light, one of their beaming household names, who preaches sermons out to everyone through the looking glass, and then we don't actually end up having time to go out and actually engage with real people, because we might form friendships and relationships like George Galloway's socialites who might be opposed to this government. We can't be having that, unless it's the new school teacher woke culture who don't want you to think deeply about anything, if they've even got the capacity to think left after all the McDonald's and Subways they've been eating in KFC. There's not much intellectual capacity remaining. We're being made dumb and stupid, and that's basically essentially what Alex Jones was saying. I mean, I just watched the Tucker Carlson Alex Jones, and I didn't agree with him on everything, but generally I kind of agree with him. It was a pretty intense interview, that, I'm not right impressed with Tucker Carlson charging people $77 a year. I mean, is he going to provide mobile phone servicing with that as well? But then again, you're not even going to get onto it. You're not going to get an internet connection unless you've paid your phone bill. It would be all right if Tucker Carlson did a deal with the phone company, whereas, you get the app automatically on your phone, and you get Tucker's app on your phone, and you scrap YouTube and Google. Maybe Tucker should do like a deal with EE or, T-Mobile or something, try get BlackRock and Vanguard out and get Tucker in. Maybe you get the Tucker app on your phone and you get a discount to his subscription, that would be something. But that's what I was saying the BBC should have done. As soon as YouTube was invented and conceived, the BBC should have seen that, okay, so, this is out of all, to inform, educate and entertain, paid for by the public, supposedly for the public, paid for by the public, that's essentially really what YouTube should be, but without the ads. Now, the only thing with YouTube is that if it didn't have ads, it would be absolutely amazing, but it relies on the ads. I just don't get the reason that the BBC don't want us to have a equivalent to YouTube that is ad-free is because it's too good. It's actually too good. It's so good that not only it should have been like that from day one, like, from the invention of the television, that it's so politically good and politically liberal and politically fair that it smokes, it blows the Labour Party and the Conservative Party out of the water. And the name Keir Starmer, to be a star, we wouldn't have any stars. There wouldn't be stars or celebrities. The concept wouldn't exist, because like when you go to school and you pretty much know everyone and everyone knows you, or you go to a club or you go to whatever, there's just people. From the start, there would be just channels. There would be just channels. And there never would be. I mean, you're always going to have, people who are slightly more popular, but I don't think it would have been anywhere near what the television is like with now, because it wouldn't have got there. It wouldn't quite have got there, I don't think. And it just shows how much of a waste of resources it took for them to acquire that, for them to acquire the TV studios and all the money and all the funding. From what you can achieve now from just having a YouTube channel at home, it literally shows that it's reduced the need for all of the studios. Really are becoming surely obsolete. Surely studios are obsolete on that scale. I mean, even the movies. The thing with the movies is, even with Ridley Scott, doing his Napoleon movie and so forth, half of the movies they're all doing with CGI studios in digital graphics. They do a small part, sometimes they film people moving and then they copy them, to get the digital print and then get the animated characters to follow the print. Some of it they film on site, but the way that it's going, that surely there's less and less needed to be filmed, even if it's Indiana Jones, with whether it's a drone or a helicopter following him, and or renting out some castle in Scotland next to a railway line so he can jump off the castle onto a moving train or whatever it is with a stuntman, by the time they're finished, by the time they can conjure up, deep fakes of Harrison Ford, they're not going to need actors even anymore, and as they're getting it more and more and more realistic, they're probably going to go for that option. I actually think that that's what it is doing. It is making humans obsolete, because if you think of it, right, that's what's happening in the movies. More and more and more and more, the actual humans becoming required less and less and less and less. In the food industry, at McDonald's, all they need is a human to go empty the fridge, then beep, 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 turn around and empty the microwave, then beep, 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 pour some more chips in, then beep, beep, beep. The humans being required even less in McDonald's, then you got the drive-through. The humans being required more and more less everywhere, and you would have thought that would leave humans with a lot less work to do and a lot more time free. And then, but what they're going to be doing with their time, have you even got enough time to watch all your favourite channels, if you wasn't working? I don't still think that you'd have enough time to watch all your favourite channels on YouTube, what is going to be left for the human? And I don't think it's going to be like intellectual, procrastination, because if you think, well, there's nothing left for humans to do, then think, just sit there in some sort of philosopher's pose, with your arm, with your fist on your head, like with your arm flex, like some sort of Greek statue. Well, I'm a great thinker, but Google are showing off now. Google are sort of doing little games on the internet, like Where's Wally, and taking the mick out of you because your processing speed's so slow. Okay, we'll have a game here, exercise your brain, but then, our computer could have done it in 5 seconds, The computer could have, got all these pictures here and matched them to the image, like in a quarter of a second, in less than half a second, you could have matched every single one of them in a fraction of a second. So what's the point in a person thinking about it, I don't even think they want us as philosophers or thinkers anymore, And that, I think, coming back to that school teacher argument, on Lawrence Fox, when, he's saying that, you can't go into the staff room now and have a deep intellectual conversation or debate in social sciences or how we should be doing this or that, because the mums just want to be right, It makes me wonder why women didn't have the vote. Although women have always had the right to petition, surely, but they just didn't vote or elect MPs, and then, we hadn't had a woman prime minister anymore. I'm not going to be controversial on this, but I'm just like, it's worth noting, maybe all the way through the entire Celts period, maybe through the entire... Well, I actually think they did have women in positions in the Celt period, but all through the Roman period and, through the Middle Ages and Anglo-Saxons and Vikings, we've had a hell of a lot of time where people have been interacting and making observations on human behaviour, emotions, deep thinkers like the people who built Stonehenge and, Pythagoras. You would have thought that, maybe there was something to do with the feminine energy, the feminine demeanour. It wasn't necessarily favourable when it came to politics. Maybe that's why. Maybe it wasn't just like the woman's week or the woman's, woman's places with the children or this or that. Maybe there was something a little bit more to it. Possibly, I'm not saying there is. Maybe there was. Maybe there's something more to it. And what I'm wondering if it was something to do with the fact that, like when you have arguments, they say that women argue with how they feel about something, and they don't necessarily come out with words that are a fact. This is a fact. That is a fact. That is a fact. They say things of how they feel emotionally that might not be factually correct, but it's correct to how they feel. Right, so they're actually they're responding with an emotion, and the male responds, well, although some males shout and get angry, that's sure as hell emotional, but it's usually based because of a fact. Although that's quite jokey and comedy when it comes to Boris Johnson, who's known to lie about facts. Well, that's he likes facts, but he likes to he likes to lie about the facts. That's it. I wonder, because a lot of times with women, I know that this is well documented, that women can sometimes engage or respond unfactually to intellectual points based on how they feel. Maybe that school teacher who was talking to Lawrence Fox in his latest interview, whether it was yesterday or the day before, maybe that is maybe they're responding. They just don't feel like talking about it or whatever. But maybe they should. Why be a school teacher, or why be a teacher on a subject or topic? But I definitely do think that he is correct generally, because you remember if you go to if you go to parties or whatever, particular student circles, you have a lot of these. This is where these intellectual conversations come out. These very, very deep intellectual conversations arise, and people. Some people enjoy discussing those subjects, but I do think that I found that less and less people want to engage in thinking about things intellectually. I think that it's more to do with this lazy culture, and the fact that if you went into a shop in person, or if you went into a library, or if you went into even to a pub, and you meet people in person, even if they're a stranger and not your friend, sometimes you have these conversations with strangers, and probably more so if you don't know them. A lot of people used to go into, pubs or clubs or places and have you get talking to someone, and you don't have to get personal because they don't know you don't know them, so therefore you can discuss the subject without kind of mattering where they're from or who they are, because you purely the subject, and I think that if they're under when it's businesses and companies and they're under directions or orders or rules, from superiors, they don't necessarily want to get into it. And I think that the fact that it's over email or non-personal, it's got this kind of sort of this whole chathead thing about it, like when Messenger chathead pops up, like little circle, and then if you're doing something, it's flicking out the way. It's got that kind of connotation to it, and I think that kind of like attachment sort of to it now with the whole culture, and I just think that some people can't be bothered, and when they're the ones calling the shots, you don't really have an option if it's a big company. I'm not saying that they don't give refunds. Some of these big companies do give refunds, and some of them, do sometimes sort things out, but not necessarily the way that you want it sorted out, or that it should be sorted out. This is an issue that I've got with the VAT at the moment, and that's due with laziness, because I know the charities are just giving their charity number because they are exempt. And they give the VAT number over and the charity number, and then they have to pay VAT. They don't have to pay tax. But that's got nothing to do with the item itself. The item's identity and the law of the item has got nothing to do with who's buying the item. and there's actually there's a way of doing it in classifying the item itself as it's made, and that's separate from who's buying the item and what their status is. And I think that the charities have just been doing it on their number all the time. And when charities go somewhere and get it on the number, and they've just been doing it like that, and it's not really given any reason for the companies to treat their items differently, reclassify them. And that's what's been happening with the VAT. And you can go into the website, or the government website, and there's a whole list of different types of printed items that you can manufacture. And the thing, they all fall into the same classification of document as well for customs purposes. Anything that's printed matter that's zero tax rated, whether it's calendars, posters, booklets, whatever, they're all given the same number for customs purposes as document, and it's the same number, and I was right about that. I'm sorry, you're making it into a document effectively, and I was right about it, and you are. And that number for documents covers a large spectrum of different types of printed items, and that was an intuition that I guessed, and it turns out I was right about it. Like all these things like pamphlets, stickers, brochures, badges, all these different things. A lot of them have got a different ID number when they're tax rated, but as soon as they're not tax rated anymore, what do you treat the item as? What do you regard it as legally? Well, they say that brochures, which are stapled together pages of pamphlets, which are more than one page, aren't legally defined. Well, that's wrong. They are defined because they're defined through customs. You've got to define it through customs. And what do you define it as? Well, it tells you that there's a very, very wide spectrum of different things, and it's document. It becomes document because that's the thing. Illegal representation. This is the thing with in the Advertising Act, it says any word, letter, sign, or a representation. Well, this is the thing. An advertisement can also be a legal representation, because you can fasten like a legal notice on the wall, and it is a legal notice, but you're advertising a legal notice. It's an advert and a legal representation, and that a legal representation is a document, So it's literally, it's kind of like redefining something. Something is defined, not just what it physically is, but the purpose of which it's going to be used for, or what it means. Its meaning, when you change its meaning as well, it exists as an object that's multifunction. It's a little bit like, in BMXing and rollerbooting and, so forth. If you've got a bench, the government made it to sit on. It's a bench. And then what they do is they don't want tramps sleeping on it, right? Well, in the 1960s, you could lay down on a bench because, there was really, in the 1950s or 60s, if they put a bench in a park, and you've been jogging and you sit down, you might want to lay down. No, you can lay down on the grass, surely, but it was included. They didn't ban people from laying down on a bench. Now, in America, you don't want tramps or homeless people laying on these benches, so they design them to prevent it from doing that. You can't lay on it physically. They want benches that you have to sit in a certain position on, which is highly restrictive, even though I suppose you can sit on the grass always. But, yet in China, they've got all these mad modern airports that have got all these ergonomically designed weird things that, you can lay down in an airport because you paid money and you're going on a flight and you might want to rest or sleep. So, they've got all these first class shaped, weird Google headquarters shaped objects that, if you're in Google headquarters, you can sit, you hang upside down like a vampire if you want, but not outside in the public. The public aren't allowed to. If it's taxpayer funded in the public square, Now the council are telling you how to sit down, or you must sit with your legs together, or you must lay at 3 degrees. You sit at 45.6 degrees. Like, we don't want these homeless people, but if you're in an airport and you paid for a flight, then you can hang upside down like a fucking vampire from the fucking roof. This is it. It's insane. That's by how much money you've got and who you are. Are you a tramp? Have you got a house or not? Well, you're not allowed to lay down then, But if you're a businessman on first class, you can fucking hang upside down from the fucking roof. This is what Nancy Pelosi's brain comes out with. She's investing in all these companies that are making all these objects and setting the laws for the White House. Nancy Pelosi should probably fasten herself a fucking black bar on the roof in fucking Congress, like hanging upside down like fucking, she's probably got her own video fucking library up there as well, like straight out of, The Lost Boys or something. This is what America's coming to, because they're trying to control behavior of humans, and it goes on how much money you've got. Here we have one human. Here's a human being. He's got 2 arms and 2 legs, right? Now, if this human is rich and has a lot of money, they can do whatever they want. They can lay down. They can, sit doggy style. They can play with all, if they go into the airport, paid money. He can sleep all he wants. But no, there's a homeless person. It's a poor person. He's got no money. You would sit, you can only sit down. In fact, if he's a homeless person and he's got no money, they probably don't even want him sitting at, 90 degrees on the bench. He's probably got a whoopee cushion beep that tells you much money he's got in his pocket. He's probably, if he's not got, it's a miracle. It's not like going to the public toilets when you've got to pay, you've got to pay 20p to go for a wee. It's like now you might have to pay money to sit on the bench. I don't know why they don't have spikes in New York and in Los Angeles on the bench. It's amazing. It's not like a bed of nails. And then you put 20p in the bench and then the nails go away and then you can sit down. And after you've had 10 minutes parking on it, then it goes beep, 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 and the spikes come back up. Then Nancy Pelosi's walking down the road and there's like Gandhi laid out on there, what were you doing laying on the bench? You're on paid. No, but I'm Gandhi, I can lay in a bit of nails. Look, behold, it's just insane. The type of things, but who you are and how much money you've got, what is the purpose of this? It's just ridiculous. I mean, but I don't see how they can stop the tramps lying down on the grass anyway, because, surely people in New York City go to the park in the summer and sit on the grass and have a picnic. So it seems stupid, and Robert F. Kennedy was saying that, most of the people who are homeless are because they can't afford the house prices, but yet there's all these empty shops there that have gone bust because Jeff Bezos has put all of the designer brands on Amazon, so people don't need to go in the shops to buy them. Elton John doesn't need to go with a shopping trolley to HMV anymore to fill it up with CDs because he's just downloading MP3s from the internet. He doesn't need to go there anymore. He doesn't need to be there. He used to, and the paparazzi out going there photographing him turning up to buy loads of CDs. Because he's putting his own material out. He's putting although that he used to complain that they were bugging his apartment, and now the Tucker Carlson's saying that he was being bugged as well. We're all bugged. I would have hoped the future wasn't a place where you had to live your life constantly, where the newspapers are putting headline stories about, the latest thing that you did, or what colour socks you've got on, or what Elton John did in his bathroom, or whatever, who wants a future where anonymous people or, the media are constantly, spying through the keyhole to see what you're up to, to see what colour boxer shorts you put on, or what socks, or what you're doing. And now I've realised that they've been doing that the whole time, the BBC. And I don't like that type of world. It's an odd world. I mean, who are these people? and why, some people are wanting more and more attention, and they're wanting people to know what they're doing, like all these YouTube channels. But why aren't the BBC going, spying on them? It was like normal people are minding their own business, but the BBC and the media think they've got a right to know, what they're writing in the letters, what they're sending in the post, and what so forth. It's what is the interest? What is the public interest? Why can't people just live a life? A normal life. It don't make any sense unless you're wanting to be in the spotlight and jumping in there like Nigel Farage or whatever. Those are the people they should be concentrating on, not other people. But then back to points of light again, isn't it? Points of Light awards. Why are they on the Prime Minister's website still? And why is it making a big deal out of aiming light beams